What you got going on there, mister?
Well, Patches, today we're jarring tomatoes. Let's get dirty.
Yeah.
Okay, you got some fruits and vegetables, aquaponics in the greenhouse. Get deep sometimes, growing stuff. Yeah.
The winter gets pretty cold where we live, and I recently shut down my polytunnel greenhouse to prepare it to be converted into a geodome greenhouse. And I had a bunch of tomato plants left over that I wanted to harvest, but still wanted to make sure that I had tomatoes throughout the rest of the winter. Jarring is a great way to make sure that you've got delicious tomatoes the entire season.
Yum, 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 yum. How can I help?
Oh, would you like to open this jar and I'll make us some food?
Would I? Wow.
So first, we harvested and prepared the tomatoes. Now, the ones that we got were from our backyard greenhouse. If you don't have one of those kicking around, you can always grab a bunch from a supermarket if they have a blowout sale or something.
What kinds of tomatoes can you jar with, mister?
Oh, all kinds, Patches. Pretty much any kind of tomato is good for jarring. Even if you're a sadist and you want to spend hours plucking and peeling those tiny little cherry or grape tomatoes. We just used a regular beefsteak and brandywine though. If you were choosing to go from ones on the vine and you had any that were still green, a trick that we picked up was just make sure that you cut them off with enough of the vine attached to them and hang them upside down. The green tomatoes will actually suck all the nutrients out of that vine and continue to ripen for a bit. If you have left them on the vine to ripen, what you might find is the tomatoes themselves get a little soft and the vines get a bit hard. And when you rip them out, you actually damage the tomato. So a trick to get the tomatoes off the vine, you just grab around the base of the vine and you just twist and pull. So the second step is all about blanching them and jarring them. Now, blanching them just means taking your tomatoes and putting them in some scalding water for about 2 minutes until the peels come off. All you gotta do, you get a pot of water, you let that boil, you delicately place the tomatoes in one at a time so that you don't splash yourself with scalding water. Leave them in there for 120 seconds, no more. We're not trying to cook the tomatoes right now, just kind of get them to break open and scream a little so we can peel off all their skins. You take them out, you let them cool enough so that you can handle them.
Then what?
Well, you take the tomatoes and you cut them in half and gently rip the skins off of them to start placing them in your jars. You want to start with a cut side of a tomato facing down at the bottom of the jar. And as you're piling more tomatoes on, you want to really get in there with your fingers and make sure you're squishing out any little air bubbles. You don't want any surprise air pockets when we try to boil the jars later. And if you want to get all fancy, you can throw some herbs in there too. We're just using some salt and pepper and basil and oregano. Then you just make sure you wipe.
Do you wipe front to back?
Always wipe front to back. And next you top up your jars with enough tomato juice to leave about a 1/2 inch gap at the top. That 1/2 inch is critical. You want a tiny little bit of air in there because as you're cooking your tomato jars, that air is gonna escape just a little bit, and once it cools, it'll create a nice vacuum seal, keeping your tomatoes fresh. On the other hand, if you leave too much air in there, what could happen is a big tomatoey glass explosion. Once the air expands, it'll just pop your jar right out and you'll be left with glass shards and tomatoes everywhere. It's ugly, it's messy, and it sucks to clean up. So make sure 1/2 inch, yeah. Oh. For the third step, it's just boiling cooling and storing your jars. You get a big stock pot going with enough water in it so that when you place your jars inside, you've got them covered by about an inch of water at the top there. That will make sure that they are heated evenly.
And how do you know how much water that is?
Well, you know, experience and junk. Play around with it. If you're afraid of spilling hot water everywhere, you can always just put the jars in first and dump some hot water on top of them after. Yeah.
Cool.
Be careful when lowering your jars into a pot of boiling water. Barbecue tongs are not a good tool to be doing this with. They actually make rubber-coated jar grippers that you can buy relatively inexpensively. In a pinch, I use the tongs. Yeah. Set your timer for 45 minutes. After time's up, you just take the jars gently out of the pot and you set them on a cooling rack for about a day. Now, a few hours into it, you should hear that popping sound, that sound, which will let you know that there's a vacuum seal inside the jar and they should stay nice and fresh. If you want to check your seals, all you gotta do is unscrew the lid and just thumb at the flat part a bit. And if it's on there nice and tight,
Eureka!
Finally, you just store them in a cool, dark place and they're good to go for months, longer than that, if you're a pro. That's all she wrote. Look at that. Yeah. You good?
Yeah.
All right. Jarred tomatoes are fantastic. You can eat them by themselves. You can put them on chilies, stews, sandwiches, or pasta. Got some nice zucchini noodle pasta right here. Patches, how does that look?
Whoa, that looks good enough to eat, mister.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting us share. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Hi friends. If you like what we shared today, why not show us some love? Hit those like and subscribe buttons, maybe even share this video with a friend who could use a brighter day. If you want us to let you know when the next video comes out, ring that bell icon too. Have a very pleasant day.